You've hit play on the Screen Companion, a show about making your viewing time count. What do you think is the distinction between a remake and a reboot?
I think of a remake as, with this one, it's a remake of the 56 because it's just self-contained. But like with the Spider-Man movies, I would consider those reboots because they're starting from the beginning again because they're going to do sequels. That's the plan.
And I would also say that reboots assume you know something about the previous work.
Yes, I will agree with you on that.
Or else, how is it a reboot unless there's a reference point for it? Whereas a remake, like when we're talking about the connections between the 70s and the 50s versions, you were saying, well, if people haven't seen the 50s one, they're not even going to realize that Kevin McCarthy has a cameo. So it's okay, yeah, in that case, that feels like a remake, because I don't think they're really banking on people that saw the 50s one necessarily coming back, like their audience is newer viewers. But where would you say is the line between a worthwhile remake versus one that feels desperate or creatively bankrupt?
I would consider 78 to be a good remake of the 56. Because I think it takes the positives of the 56 version and enhances or continues those. I think it cut down on some of the negatives of the 56. It also becomes its own thing where it's not a straight one-for-one or shot-for-shot remake. It's a very different picture, although the story is the same. They're two almost completely different movies, even with the key scenes that they share between them, like the discovering of the pods and even killing one of the pod people as it's forming. It's just very different. We were talking about The Thing earlier. Now, I haven't seen the original. I think it's called The Thing from Another World. I know my dad's seen it, and he says that that version and the 80s version, of course, are two vastly different films. I think a good remake takes what was good about the original and applies the aesthetics and the viewpoints and the creative process of the decade that you're making it so it can still feel fresh. I just don't want to feel like I'm watching the same exact thing, because then I could watch the original. Give me something better if you can.
It's been a really long time since I saw the 50s Vincent Price Fly movie. But as far as what I think a really good remake is, and Jeff Goldblum, he was in the 70s Body Snatchers. He's also in the 80s remake of The Fly. What I think works so well there is that they take the premise, a man turns into a giant fly, and they do something totally different with it. All the beats are switched up, the twists are different, it has something it wants to say that's different from the original. And I wish these Body Snatcher movies took a page out of that. I did a Venn diagram, and there are a lot of things that actually are common traits between all three of these versions. Then I almost go, were they really that necessary? Were they really that useful to continue these certain scenes between all three movies?
I mean, I guess, that is an interesting one. For me, with remakes, I always get nervous about them being so vastly different, because then I just feel like you can go into the territory of being not creatively bankrupt, because you're still being creative, you're trying to do something different. But I'm also a believer in, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think a lot of times with remakes, I am of the mind, leave it alone and let the original stand. But I can really appreciate a good remake, or, like a good cover song. I love it when a cover song is better than the original, because it's just like, oh God, that's so cool. That just kind of adds novelty to it right then and there.
Nowadays, would you rather see a remake or a sequel?
Right now, I feel like we're living in this age where like everything's getting a sequel. I don't like it when I see a movie and then sequels come out and I think to myself, there's no way it's going to be anything better than the last one I watched. I'm going to quit. I get almost mad at those types of sequels. Example would be Toy Story 4. I can't see how they would continue the story after 3, so I just didn't watch it because I knew I wouldn't enjoy it. I think that's why I would rather get a remake, because I feel like we're hitting these points where the sequels are just, they come off as obvious cash grabs. And when I'm thinking of it, I'm just thinking, I'm just better off not watching this at all. And so I'd rather just get a remake. I cannot overemphasize how pleasantly surprised I was with Top Gun Maverick. How do you do a sequel for that movie? It's been so long. But that's how you do it. So like, I don't want remakes, but I also don't want too many sequels. So
how many franchises hit that pinnacle where they put out such an incredible film or second or third in the series that they can only go down from here? I can't think of too many franchises that hit such a high peak like that I wouldn't think the next one could be as good or better.
Toy Story did that with number 3. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade did it. I'm at the point right now where I don't think they're going to do anything better than Top Gun Maverick, and I think they announced the third one. I don't want to see it. If it's Tom Cruise and Macquarie doing it again, I'll be there, I'll watch it, but I'm going to have a hard time thinking about how they can make Maverick better. I felt like that wrapped everything up perfectly too.
Those specific examples, I agree with you. I saw Toy Story 4. I didn't think it was the worst movie in the world, but it definitely was a big step down from 3. But when I'm thinking of like the recent Spider-Man movies, I didn't think any of them were particularly good. So please give me a sequel. Actually, give me Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire.
At this point, I don't want it. I cannot see them making it better than Spider-Man 3.
Do you think the Body Snatchers concept is something that would have worked better as sequels instead of remakes?
No. If you make these sequels, you almost always have to go bigger. What's at stake in the next one? How does it get worse, right? Typically with movies such as this, where it's a horror film or you can especially attach this to action, they always go bigger in terms of the scope. I don't think this would have worked better as sequels because the first one is the town and then the next one's San Francisco. The third one would have to be the whole goddamn US. And then where do you go from there? Do they go back to space? Do they go to another planet to wreck? I don't like how sequels just keep getting bigger and bigger. I blame comic book movies especially because they always have to do the next one larger. They always go bigger with the action and the scope instead of going bigger with what's personally at stake for the hero, which that's why Spider-Man 1 and 2 are just perfect films, really. Yeah, see, I'm getting a little hot under the collar now thinking about it because it's just like, I get angry at these sequels for going way too big, man.
But remakes can fall prey to getting too big as well.
They can.
These remakes, if you look at their ending sequences, their final acts, they get progressively bigger in scope.
They do, but I also feel like both of them make sense for what happens in the film.
Tell us your favorite guests and what material you'd like us to cover next by emailing thescreencompanion@gmail.com, visit the Facebook group, or leave comments on YouTube. Support the podcast by subscribing and go to Amazon for the host's second novel, Self-Recognition, a futuristic detective story, available in both print and Kindle. Thank you to everyone stateside and around the world for listening.
Yeah, you're right. Like Body Snatchers 93, it's a bigger scope ending, but the primary story, it is a smaller scale. Everything makes logical sense as to why it would end on the scale that it did. To an extent, there was one gripe that I clearly had with the very end of that film.
Just one, huh? I think you can think of a few more.
I can think of a few. There's one in particular where I was like, what the hell is this?
Okay, so yeah, our final subject tonight is the 90s remake titled simply Body Snatchers, where this time the POV shifts to teenager Marty Malone, dragged along with her half-brother Andy and stepmother Carol on Father Steve's work assignment to a military base. Before they even get there, a soldier accosts Marty in a gas station bathroom and ominously warns her, "They get you when you sleep." Of course, having seen any of the other films, we know what he means, but the next 80 minutes, boy, will she find out. This go around, Andrew, when the end credits rolled, what were you left feeling?
Slightly annoyed with how the very end panned out, because it got to a point I couldn't stop focusing on this one detail that I thought was completely unrealistic. There was this one thing where I thought, that's just silly, and I couldn't let it go. So I was a little annoyed, actually, because I thought the movie itself was pretty solid.
I had a quarter-pounder taste in my mouth. It's like what I just took in was complete garbage, but boy did it taste good. In this 90s version, when would you say you locked into the story? Was there a scene or a moment?
It was pretty quick. It was probably the gas station bathroom. I knew going into this one that it was a much shorter film, barely under 90 minutes. So it was pretty quick once she's accosted in the bathroom, as you put it. They get you in your sleep. You know exactly what's going to happen. There's something going on. They didn't pull any punches with the concept early on that there's something that you have to watch out for while you sleep.
Well, you can't pull the punches. You can't save it for later in a sub-90 movie. You have to get to the point really fast.
You do, but even the 50s one allowed for the suspense to build up a little bit more. There was more paranoia of just like, I don't think something's right with this person, and that's not my mommy. That's one thing. This is a guy with a knife. Okay, good, you're scared. They get you in your sleep. And then he just disappears. And there you go.
That was an issue I had with the other two that this one did a better job of. You got all these people in the town, not our main cast, and they're going, something's wrong with my husband, something's wrong with this or that. And it's so ineffable when people ask them, well, what's wrong? And all they can say is, I don't know, but something. That's not very engaging or impactful for the characters or for me watching it. Okay, what am I supposed to do with that? That'd be like you coming to me saying, Max isn't who he should be. Why? I don't know, he just doesn't sound right. How does he sound? Just not like himself.
I know what you mean. They could have explored that concept a little bit more. They kind of did it with Elizabeth in the second one, where she was a main character who was going through the frustration of not really being able to explain or articulate what she meant. She just knew he was acting weird, and she was pinpointing certain things, but everyone was shooting it down. And they kind of show that, but they didn't really, I feel like they didn't really get to the core of the frustration that I imagine would come with that, because she would always be shot down and then be like, I guess you're right.
Well, one of the things she brings up is, he's not drinking as much as he used to.
Yeah, true. I mean,
it's like, why are you complaining about that? Shouldn't that be a good thing?
That is a positive, yeah. He's eating healthier.
But they explore it more in this 90s one that I really liked. So, where I locked into it, and I don't think it'll surprise you to hear this, when you have a hot chick sleeping in a bubbly bathtub, that's never a bad thing in a horror movie. Just look at Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street. It's part of a whole sequence where Marty and her father are in different parts of the house, being slowly absorbed by pods. I love the presentation there. And maybe I was on the movie side even earlier when the little brother sees the mother, played by Meg Tilly. He sees her in the middle of getting taken and he runs out screaming. And he says, that's not my mommy's dead. It's the first time they really let you in on how creepy it is. In the other versions, we're just watching people say something's happened to my loved one, but here we actually see him see his mom get taken, and it's horrific, and it's like, oh, I really get the idea what you mean, kid.
Oh, yeah. That was absolutely brilliant. It's weird because I think especially with scary movies, there's that idea of it's what you don't see that scares you. But this one was like, no. I guess because there have been two movies ahead of it, with the same concept, it's getting to the nitty-gritty, and it's like, no, this is stuff you're afraid of. You look at what this little boy just saw. And honestly, dude, poor Andy, that would have been the most traumatizing thing for a boy his age. Not only did he see his mom turn to dust in front of his eyes, then a new mom walks out of the closet, ass naked, So now he's like super confused. You don't want to see that when you're a kid. And now he's just double traumatized. That poor kid had the worst time of all the characters in the movie.
Oh, he was my favorite character. I love that kid.
He was great, but he was dumped on so hard.
The writers knew what they were doing, because it's like if it's an adult character like Elizabeth in the second one, they ask her why she thinks something weird is happening, and she just says, I saw him turn to dust right in front of my eyes. But if you ask a little boy, he can't be taken seriously.
There was a moment where I locked in and thought they were doing something really cool, was that preschool or daycare scene when everyone was doing the finger paintings and all the pod kids, it was just a carbon copy, all the finger painting was the same. They're going past them, just panning through all the finger paintings. I'm thinking, like, okay, it's all the same color palette. And I'm really studying the swipe lines in kind of the bottom left corner. And I'm saying, oh man, it's all even the same finger swipes. And so I thought that was just a really cool way to show that. And just automatically he comes home and is like, oh, well, no one likes me. As a kid, could you imagine everyone paints the same thing and you paint something different? You'd immediately feel weird and left out and just be really upset. And then your mom turns to dust. Then she comes out of the closet naked and still no one's taking you seriously.
There's definitely a precedent of kids dealing with horror. I wish it was centered around him and not Marty, because I get she's a teenager, she's going through a phase, she's bitchy, she complains about her stepmom, she's not happy. I just wasn't liking her or her little romance with the, I don't know if it's an army base or Air Force base, let's just say army. The soldier, I'm not really into their romance, but damn, every time that little kid shows up with his bowl cut, I'm like, oh kid, get out of this town! Start thumbing out of here immediately.
Run, Andy! On the subject of the romance, I found it extremely gross and distasteful. She's supposed to be, what, maybe 15 or 16, and here's this guy who's got to be in his 20s, buying her a beer and, like, trying to hook up with her, and then I don't know what she was thinking of when she asked him, have you ever shot someone during Never Have I Ever? Because it completely killed the vibe. But no, it didn't, because then he started making out with her.
No, it didn't.
It's just the weirdest thing. I didn't care for that aspect of the movie at all. I don't like any type of Chris Hansen should be involved type relationship in a film. That was a gripe I had with that one film we talked about, Beautiful Women, or what was it called? Beautiful Girls, Beautiful Women?
Beautiful Girls.
Yeah, I didn't really like that weird Natalie Portman thing going on in that film. I think the only movie actually where I didn't have too much of an issue with it, although I still did, was
Lolita?
No, it was I haven't seen Lolita. No, it was The Professional, Leon the Professional.
Really?
I felt like that one was handled as well as it could have been. There were still uncomfortable moments, but at least he was clearly disinterested in her in that way.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
Because in Beautiful Girls, it seemed like the guy was kind of entertaining it, at the bare minimum, liking the attention.
Yeah, but ultimately that didn't go anywhere either.
It didn't, but it's still weird.
Sure, but it is weird in Leon as well.
It is, but it's very one-sided, I think.
It is weird that she, in this movie, would ask him if he's killed anybody. It felt so real that he didn't let that stop him from macking.
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
And they play it for a while, too, where it's like 10 seconds of them just looking at each other awkwardly after she asked that. And you can see in his eyes, he does not care if that's killed the mood or not.
Yeah. There were a couple moments in this movie where it got to a point where I paused it and I had to look up how old the actress was when she filmed this. Because I was just like, this is a little weird.
She was legal, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was like 23, so... she was like 23 when it came out, so...
That's how we know this wasn't a French film, because she got naked in this movie. And
yeah.
Usually American movies, especially by the 90s, don't want nudity if the actress is really underage. For some creepy, messy reason, it's okay if she's actually legal, but playing a character who isn't and gets naked, but she can't really be... it's so freaky.
It is weird, yeah. Like, it was... in the bathtub scene, That's why I was like, okay, let me see how old she is. I need to know for my sanity.
Yeah, because you had the tissue box out, ready to go, and you're like, maybe I want to check first.
Oh, no.
This is a good segue. What was your favorite scene?
I think my favorite scene, that finger painting scene, I thought that was a really cool way, a different way to show how the pod people work. I also liked the scene where Forrest Whitaker was going absolutely nuts. And he's just popping amphetamines, I'm assuming, and yelling like a crazy man. If someone like that was telling me that pod people are taking over, I would have been like, dude, get out of here. Just put the gun down. Those were the two scenes that really stood out the most to me.
This movie, because it is so short, and they're aware of it, it feels like, because they don't mince words. Because there's always that scene in all these movies where it's the reveal. Whether the characters are questioning what's happening or not, there's a moment where it's like, oh, no, it's definitely on. We got to do something. They were so economical as opposed to the other two movies. So you have the bathtub scene, two of the family members trying to be turned. The mother's already been turned. And they wake up and they pull that weed stuff, the vines off of them. And they're freaking out, and they're running downstairs, and the husband says to the mother, we gotta go, we gotta get going. Which is so refreshing, to have a character see something freaky happen, and instead of just let the body lay on the pool table, folks, let's go to sleep, he's like, no, let's get the hell out of here right now, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And when she goes, go where?
Carol! We gotta go! We gotta get out of here! We gotta go right now!
Listen to me, Steve.
No, you don't understand! We've gotta go!
Go where?
No, we gotta go! What the hell are you talking about?
Steve, this is important. Go where? That's right. Go where? What happened in your room is not an isolated incident. It is something that is happening everywhere to everyone. So, where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna run? Where are you gonna hide? Nowhere. Because there's no one like you left.
That was a great scene.
What a wonderful monologue she gives.
Yeah.
Ooh, so creepy. Especially that actress, Meg Tilly, famously of the Tilly sisters, Jennifer being the other one. Meg, her career, she's in a lot of stuff where she's the softer character, the nicer character. Like she was in The Big Chill. To see her in this movie where she's the evil one, she's playing a badass, ooh, what a change. I like it.
It was really cool. That was a good monologue. It was nice after they ran away when she walked out of the house and did the scream from the 70s version. I thought that was a cool moment. That they carried that over. It was nice.
Yeah.
You didn't like it?
No. Come on, screenwriters. You got this whole palette of colors to use. Why do you got to go back and use that same shade of blue from the other movie? Do it again, but in a different way. How about they, I don't know, their eyes glow or something, but why's it got to be the same screechy thing and the pointing thing again?
I don't know. I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I suppose. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, well then don't remake it.
That's true.
So what are a few things you think would improve this film?
You know what I really wanted was when Marty shot her dad. It was an interesting scene because that was the scene in this movie where I figured it out. Don't be emotional. It makes sense because he was off camera and away from them for a while. There was that moment of like, oh, is he a pod person? Is he not? And she was telling Jim, the helicopter pilot, the pedophile, oh, shoot him. He's not my dad. And he's like, hey. He's remaining calm. He's practicing what he preached. And then she grabs his gun and shoots her dad. Honestly, I wanted it to be the dad. I didn't want it to be a pod person. I wanted him to get shot and then start crying and apologize to her. I'm sorry I yelled at you, and just give her that additional trauma on top of everything instead of him melting away because she was right. I wanted her to be wrong so that the audience also now sees that the characters, even for a daughter with her dad, they can still be fallible. I think you could really take it more to a paranoid direction with that. It was like, okay, who really is good or bad?
I love that. I'm totally there with you. The whole premise, if you're really going to explore it, you need to explore the ramifications and how you're not always going to be right when you think somebody is a pod person or isn't a pod person. I'm not a huge fan of Gabrielle Lenoir, who plays Marty, but I was getting a little chilly when she kept insisting that that dude should shoot her father. Good bit of acting from her there. She's just losing her crap like, shoot him! Shoot him!
It was really effective. I didn't like her as a character sometimes. She's very much a stereotype of an angsty teenage girl. I felt like there were a lot of tropes there. But yeah, that scene was really good. I kind of wish that she was wrong and killed her poor old dad, who's just like legitimately trying to help. It raises the stakes for the character and the audience.
Would you stop kicking the table, please? Thank you.
I can't wait till I'm 18.
Why, you think you won't be my daughter anymore?
No, I'll still be your daughter. I just won't have to listen to you.
You don't listen to me now. Look, if you want to go so bad, you don't have to wait till you're 18. Just go now.
You'd like that, huh? Then it'll just be the three of you.
Want to go back to daycare today, honey? Or you want to stay home with Mommy?
My mommy's dead.
I like that they brought in the family aspect of this one compared to the other two, but then I have to look at the conclusion and go, well, so she hated her family, or at the very least was angsty about it, and then her whole family dies? What was the arc there?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like, well, one of them she didn't want to die. Near the end of it, she was, okay, I can't leave this guy behind.
I didn't want that guy to die either.
I completely understand where you're coming from. It does almost seem like she got everything she wanted. Maybe that's the arc of like, oh, but at what cost? She has a pretty static character arc. It just kind of stays the same.
Earlier when the father, rightly so, sees that his daughter's come home, she's been out drinking, Jim is driving her home, an older guy, and the father's like, stay away from my daughter. Do you know she's underage? And Jim says, no, I didn't know that. He totally knew that, right?
He absolutely did. I just didn't like Jim. He had to have known. If I, as an audience member, had to look up the actress's age, I cannot imagine a character in the movie thinking that she's anything older than that.
Wait a second, you hold the title on our show of being the most fuddy-duddy. So I think you're going to card everybody, even if they want to use cooking wine.
That is not true. I am a fuddy-duddy, but I'm not that much of a fuddy-duddy. Honestly, dude, you want to be the cool guy, maybe give a beer to a teenager, okay, whatever, you're on an army base. I know they're not going to give a shit, at least back then, maybe. But no, you don't hook up with the 15, 16-year-old. You just don't.
Wait a second, they didn't hump, did they?
No, but
I don't think that's the implication. I think they just made out.
There was that uncomfortable romance, and that was the thing I had a problem with in the movie, not just with the age difference. He seemed really attached and like all about her. I gotta get you out. He first thought of her when everything was going to hell, it seemed like. It's just weird.
I was on his side, though, when they're trying to escape, and she mentions her little brother, and Jim says, I'll come back for him.
Yeah.
It's so consistent with his character, where he's so good at coolly just lying to your face. Oh, we'll come back for him, even though we see all these pod people staging this mass invasion of the rest of the country and the world. We'll come back someday.
Yeah. He wasn't a very good dude. His deeds were okay, but his attitude, I think he was doing everything for the wrong reasons.
But just like the other two, that similar moment where it's like, okay, be cool, don't overact, we don't have emotions, we're pretending to be pod people, be cool. And what is it in this movie where she gives it away, where Marty gives it away and everybody knows she's not a pod person?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember.
I'll give you a hint. Remember her friend that she makes in town?
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's another one where I'm like, not only do I obviously see the connection with the other two movies, it's just a copy of a copy of a copy. It's like, well, what are you guys doing here? How about subvert my expectation and have Marty show some intelligence and reservation and actually have her, when the other girl's like, your brother says hi, if Marty just looks at her and goes, whatever, and then keeps walking. That would have been cool. And then we can see it read on her face when she's walking away that she really does feel bad, but obviously she knows she can't show that in front of any of these people. Because that would have been a zag where the other two movies zigged.
You do have a good point there.
Because I would really like to ask the writer, did you do it that way because on your own you just felt that was satisfying, or did you play it that way because you felt if you're going to pull from the other movies like that, it has to happen like that? You know, she has to reveal it.
I think with this movie they did do the whole like don't show emotions thing. That was a good twist on it because he was already a pod person giving him that advice. There's a zag. But you are right about that one. I guess they had to have a tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but there's like other ways you could do it. Try it out. Establish a new precedent for this stuff. We're doing 3 movies, but the Body Snatcher concept and the remakes of it, there's like 2 or 3 more that we're not doing.
I did actually look it up and notice that there was a Daniel Craig, Nicole Kidman one that was not well received at all.
Yeah, you can go back to the well one too many times. What do you think of the action-packed last 2 minutes of the movie?
It made sense in the way that, logically speaking, with what was happening, it made sense that the threat would be taken seriously, and it was a good way to show that you can't best the U.S. military.
Is an attack helicopter really that well armed, though? We saw it take out road targets. It took out an entire base on its own.
I don't know enough about attack helicopters. However, I can imagine easily them taking out trucks. I know that there are, I think Apache helicopters have missiles for days, or rockets, whatever they would be technically. Now, I can definitely see them taking out the trucks on their own. The base, maybe a couple helicopters for that. Or maybe a good cruise missile would be good.
I would say out of the 3, this is probably, if I'm going to revisit one, it'll probably be the 90s one.
I think so too. I feel like it was very succinct and well told. I would revisit this one in the 78 before I revisited the 56, but I think I would do this one before the 78 one. The brevity really helps.
Hey, are there any moments in the 90s version where the soldiers that are pod people, do we see them with guns? Do they use weapons ever?
No, I didn't even think about that.
Like in the scene with Forrest Whitaker, he's got a gun, but I don't think any of them approaching him have guns on them.
I don't think they did, but it would make sense if they didn't, because in a way they're kind of just talking about a world without hate, so maybe it's a weird form of pacifism where they don't see it as malicious. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe it's like, oh, it's not violent that we're stealing your body. In the 78 in this one, the premise is rid yourself of all these negative things. We got it from here and we'll take care of things. Versus the 56 one where it's like, you don't need love. You don't need freedom.
How do you feel about them explaining more about the origins of the alien spores in the 70s and 90s ones?
I did appreciate it because you have to wonder what they're doing there. I actually did look up a synopsis of the book. The book pod people It goes into more detail about them where they only live about 5 years, I guess. They're just mining the planet for resources, and then they're going to bounce as soon as Earth is pretty much an empty and dead planet. I do like that they explain more of what they do in the later versions, just because I like to know a villain's reason to why they're doing things. I can get behind a villain who's evil for the sake of being evil, but at least let me know that versus I'm wondering, like, what's the point, you know?
I wish one of the versions had something akin to a bored queen. Because there's really no villain in any of these movies. Individual villain.
I can understand that. I do like the idea of a hive mind without a central, like the Borg Queen.
I don't want it in all versions, but I mean, damn, once you've gotten to like the 4th remake, how about try something a little different this time?
It's a little different for Body Snatchers, but then I would just kind of argue you're taking things from Star Trek and Alien, where there's like the Queen.
There's definitely a segment of those fandoms that don't like that, having a mouthpiece for something that's supposed to just be a hive thing.
Yeah.
But to round out this episode, let me ask you some TLDL, too long, didn't listen, rapid-fire questions about the 3 movies we watched tonight. Which movie made the most sense?
The 90s.
Which movie had the best protagonist?
78.
What if I say you can include Andy?
I gotta include Andy. Like, he was such a good character. He really was.
For how much he was on screen, I loved him every minute.
Yeah, he left an impression. He was the MVP of that movie.
He definitely left an impression.
He really does. Yeah.
Yeah, folks, watch the 90s one if you're only going to watch one of the 3 for the final 5 minutes of that alone. I mean, the dog with the dude's face from the 70s one, that was pretty cool, but it doesn't hold a candle to what happens in the 90s version.
Yeah, it doesn't. 90s one is a good watch.
Which movie had the best ending?
78.
When they inevitably do another remake, do you think they should stick with the small town, city, or go with another military installation setting?
Short answer, big city. With horror films in general, they try to take from current events or society's traumas, and currently society's big trauma, of course, has been COVID. So I would have it happen in a big city, but the origins would be established from somewhere else. I'm not going to say where, it doesn't matter, but it has to come from somewhere else. Maybe a continuation of the 90s where the pods are delivered somewhere, and then they're dealing with it and they know it came from somewhere else.
Ooh, I like that spin. Yeah, that would be nice. Which movie was the scariest?
I would say 78 was the scariest.
Which movie let you down the most?
56.
I'm not saying the worst one, just the one that maybe didn't live quite up to your expectations.
It would be 56. The thing is like I had seen it previously, but it's not like this rewatch gave me a newfound appreciation for it. I'll put it that way.
And the final question, maybe the most important question. Brooke Adams naked in a burning grow house, or Gabrielle Anwar naked in a foamy tub?
I'm going to say the burning house. But actually, the correct answer is Meg Tilly coming out of the closet.
I would say that, except it was a body double, and I don't like cheaters.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if we're going to go for authenticity, then yes, I will go with the burning pod house.
How about Gabrielle Anwar's second nude appearance when she's on that slab in the, I don't know if it was the medic station or what, when people are being turned and Jim's walking by and in the pod, Marty tries to get him to let her become the new Marty. That was creepy, wasn't it?
It was very creepy, but I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is I'm still remembering that the character's supposed to be 15 years old.
I don't remember them explicitly saying she was 15.
I'm assuming she's high school age, I'll put it that way.
That could be 17. 17 and 364 days. But if we liken turning into a pod person, the whole process, to downloading a program on a computer, toward the ending when Pod Marty is trying to get Jim to let her live and kill the real Marty, she was looking so normal and naked. God, that must have been like a 99% download.
Yeah, it was really quick. It is interesting when you put it that way, because like she had some personality there. Or, well, it's not so much personality.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else, we see half-formed bodies and they look gross and squicky. But then she just happens to look great, like she just got out of a sauna.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she was like almost complete.
She looked complete enough.
Yeah. I will say that was one thing about the bathtub scene that I thought was interesting when the almost formed Marty, it's supposed to be a seduction moment, so of course they're not going to have like some naked, scarred titty goblin trying to seduce the guy.
What dumbass pod person thought it was a good idea to put a pod up in the tiles of a ceiling?
I don't know, dude. I was thinking that too. It looked like it was made out of like those tiles that you see in classrooms. I don't know why you would put, because it's like it's gonna grow into a. Did they think they were gonna nab Andy in the bathtub maybe, and they thought the weight would hold? I don't know.
Yeah, so at the same time, I think that's ludicrous. I do like that that's how she wakes up. Like, it's not some super contrived thing where she's nodding off and then, oh, suddenly I feel like opening my eyes, and then discovers the plot. The pod falling through the ceiling triggers it, and that's what wakes her up.
Yeah.
That was a nice resolution to that. You've reached the end of this episode of The Screen Companion. Thank you for listening.